great special pair of those ruby zippers. I want those most of all. Now fly! Fly!
Hi YouTube, this is Raven. I'm a survivor of a 16-year marriage to a covert narcissist or someone with a personality disorder. I'm not sure whether my ex has NPD or BPD, borderline personality disorder, because he's not been officially diagnosed by a mental health care professional with a personality disorder. This is just simply my opinion based on a 16-plus year marriage and observations of his behavior. That being said, the clip that you just heard is from The Wizard of Oz. It's the scene where the Wicked Witch of the West is sending out her flying monkeys to do her bidding. She's sending them out to the haunted forest to get Dorothy and her friends and, you know, mess with their lives and bring Dorothy back to her and bring the ruby slippers back to her. And I've wanted to do this video for a long time about flying monkeys because it took me a long time to realize that I had flying monkeys in my life. Even after the narc was out of my life, I still had flying monkeys that were there reporting to him, trying to mess with me, and I just didn't know. And I even had flying monkeys while I was married. And, you know, if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, there may be flying monkeys that you don't know about. You know, people who pretend to be your friends, and they're really not your friends. You know, they're working for the narc in some way. And the narc uses flying monkeys to change people's perceptions about you. The way a flying monkey works, let's say that you have a movie you want to go see, and you've seen all the previews for this movie, this blockbuster film that's coming out this summer, and you know, you get your tickets, you're getting ready to go to it, and then you read a review by a movie critic, and it talks about worst action movie ever, worst romance movie ever, terrible acting, terrible soundtrack, cinematography was childish, and it changes your perception about the movie before you even sit down with your popcorn and your drink, you know, to watch the movie, because now you already have it in your mind, did I just waste $10, you know, and you know, with I've got my 3D glasses ready here, and now, you know, the movie's probably going to suck. You know, and it changes your perceptions. And that's the way narcissists do. You know, they'll go around and say things like, so-and-so's wife, she's an alcoholic. Did you know that? She's an alcoholic. They say that she drinks like 3 bottles of wine a night, you know, and she's, you know, and she's been in rehab several times, you know, and her husband just, you know, they'll spin this story. And you've never met this person, but then you go to the party, you know, maybe there's a Christmas party at work or whatever, and you see this person, and now because you have it in your mind, and that person has a glass of wine in their hands, and they're not intoxicated, they just have a glass of wine in their hands, and it confirms everything that the narc has told you, like, oh, yeah, look at that. I mean, it's 7:30 at night, and she's already got a glass of wine. I mean, even though you would not have thought anything different about that, you would have been like, oh, you know, she's just like anybody else at the party, she's having a glass of wine. But because, you know, that the narc has given you that story, you're seeing that person through that lens, through that template. And that's what was happening my entire marriage. I mean, I remember going to Christmas one year at my mother-in-law's house. And, you know, I sat down, I thought, you know, we had a good night together. You know, I was sitting there talking with my sister-in-laws and, you know, socializing, whatever. And afterwards, you know, narc was telling me a couple days later, oh, yeah, my sister was talking about how that they were just so surprised. They were so surprised that they had such a good time with you. I'm like, wait a minute, why were they surprised? Were they expecting some sort of confrontation? Because I think he had said something, you know, that he had tried to create some kind of drama that was going to go on over Christmas. I didn't know what it was, but he had been talking with them to create some kind of drama. They're like, oh, we had such a great time with Raven. We had such a great time. Like you were, and they were shocked, you know, like they had had a great time with me over Christmas. I'm like, what was there supposed to be some sort of throwdown, you know? And I think that every Christmas or holiday, it was almost like I was auditioning. Like today, the part of daughter-in-law will be auditioning Raven. She'll be auditioning for the part of daughter-in-law. Her past roles include fiancé, girlfriend, and significant other. She has played daughter-in-law for 10 years, but has never officially been given the role. I mean, I could just hear that, or like when you watch a soap opera and they say, the part of Victor Newman will now be played by so-and-so, when they replace an actor on a soap opera. So it was almost like I was auditioning all the time, or, my life was looked at under a microscope by these people because they were flying monkeys and they were being told something different, to look out for, how to perceive me. And there was one particular flying monkey that she continued to be a flying monkey even after the divorce, after, we started going through the divorce. But I did a video about how my ex-husband, when he was my husband at the time, just could not let our daughter be in Girl Scouts. He could not let her be in Girl Scouts without him being the troop leader. He's a guy, and he's taking over the troop, and he's being the troop leader. Well, he finally got pushed out of that role. The women did not want a man telling them what to do. And this woman who pushed him out of the role, I'm going to call her Mary. I'm not going to call her by her real name. So Mary, who's extreme type A, hyperactive, go-getter. If you've ever seen the movie Troop Beverly Hills, there was a troop leader in there that she was just like gung-ho, special forces, troop leader. She even had like a purple heart, on her uniform. And that was kind of the way Mary was. And Mary's husband, I'm going to call him A-hole, because he is an a-hole, and he's one of Narc's few friends. Narc does not have very many friends, but a-hole is his friend, and a-hole is, he's someone you can tell has anger issues. Big time anger issues. I think that's why he and Narc just mesh, because, they're cut from the same cloth. I mean, they could be brothers. So he and a-hole started hanging around together. I'll just call him A-H, because I don't want to keep saying that word, but A-H and my Narc hung around together and became friends. So they would get together and like drink beer and sit around the campfire at this guy's place, several nights a week. And apparently he got Mary involved in this, and so now Mary's sitting around the campfire. Well, I worked at night, so I didn't want to go, I didn't want to leave my job, my second shift job, to go sit around the campfire and drink stale beer. Well, Narc decided that Mary and I needed to have a friendship. So Mary invited me to a wine bar. And we went to a wine bar, and I think I've talked about this in another video, where at the wine bar, I think she was trying to get me drunk, because she kept insisting that we order a bottle. Let's order a bottle. Let's order a bottle. I'm like, no, I'm going to be driving home. I only want, like one drink. And, she's sitting there, and it was very uncomfortable. And she kept asking me questions, and it was more like it was a job interview instead of, two women who have kids in Girl Scouts, hanging out together. And, she even went so far as to lie to me. She was talking about, do you watch Netflix? I'm like, well, yeah, I watch Netflix. I mean, it's kind of like, asking someone, do you drink water? I drink water. Do you drink water? And so she went on to tell me, oh, yes, I love to watch Netflix. There's this one program I watch on Netflix all the time. I've watched all the episodes. And, she was saying that I might be into it. I was like, okay, I'll go on and check it out. Well, I got home and I went on Netflix. That particular TV show was not streamable on Netflix. It had never been on Netflix. But, I'm like, why did she lie to me about that? And it was weird. And she invited me out again. And this time it was in the middle of the day. And I thought that was strange that it was in the middle of the day, because it was in the middle of my work day, and she wanted us to go out to this Mexican restaurant. And so there we go out to the Mexican restaurant. Again, she wants me to order, a drink, and I'm like, no, I'm not ordering a drink. It's in the middle of the day. And, she's asking me all these kind of questions, and she seemed surprised when she was asking me, like, so what are your plans for the future? And I didn't know what she meant by plans for the future. And I was like, well, in May, I'm thinking about taking the family to Washington, D.C., because the Army is doing I've got to go up to Washington, D.C. for the Army, and so I'm going to take, the husband and the kids along, too, and we'll make it a long weekend. And she's, oh, really? You're making plans like that so far in the future. Well, what she meant, I think that she knew, the narc had been talking about how we were having problems in the marriage. And I think what she wanted me to admit to was that we were having problems. And like, oh, well, I'm thinking about leaving my husband, and I'm thinking about, moving on with my life or whatever. She was fishing. It was a fishing expedition. But she was trying to gather evidence about me for whatever reason. Because once the divorce started, she became a huge flying monkey, where she was calling me up and telling me things like, your children are in pain. You can't see that your children are in pain. It doesn't take a bright person to see that those children are hurting. I'm like, really? You think the children are hurting? Yeah, the children are hurting, but Narca doesn't care. And, when I would bring up things like this, that, I didn't want my children, around someone who had put a gun in his mouth and tried to kill himself, because I didn't know if he was still suicidal. And she's like, well, that's just a difference of opinion, because, we're friends with him. Boom. Okay. She admitted that she was friends with him. She had always been friends with him, even though she tried to cultivate a friendship with me. And she was letting me know that we were friends. Well, apparently we weren't. She was a flying monkey. And, I've seen this, play out in my life, that, I still have flying monkeys out there that tell narc what's going on in my life. Even though I've went through my Facebook page and I've blocked dozens of people, I have unfriended dozens of people. I don't share a lot about my life on Facebook, and yet somehow narc seems to get info about me. Like the other day, he was like, oh, congratulations are in order, Nurse Raven. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, you're almost done, right? You're almost done with school. I'm like, I'm not done yet. I haven't graduated yet, but, I am done. I'm thinking that in my head. But I'm like, I don't want validation from you. I don't want a congratulations from you. I don't want anything from you. Gone are the days that I needed validation from this man. And yet, he's telling me some details about my school. I'm like, where have you gotten this from? And the only thing I can figure is that, there's one flying monkey left in my Army Reserve unit. And she was asking me a whole lot of questions about how, so when you graduate, you're going to be a LPN, right? And I'm like, no, RN. Oh, RN? Yes, RFN, registered fucking nurse. It's like, I'm an RN. And she's done this several times. I know she's doing it on purpose now. She knows that I'm in an RN program, but she always wants to say, oh, you're a LVN, LPN, nurse's assistant. No, I'm an RN. But, she does this, and she's friends with Narc. I've done a couple videos about her in the Narcs Are Ridiculous series. She's the naked girl in the hotel room, and the one that is a vegetarian. But, I think she reports back to him, and she tells him things that are going on in my life. And so I've realized that I've got to be very careful what I put on Facebook. I've got to be very careful who I talk to, because I don't want him getting details about my life. I don't want him to know what's going on in my life, because I know that there are still flying monkeys out there. And, if you've been in a relationship with somebody for a long period of time, you may have mutual friends that you don't realize are flying monkeys, and they're out there, they're watching you, they're spying on you, they're gathering info for the narc, because it gives the narc supply to get information about you. Whether that information is good or bad, and that gives them supply. And I don't want to give him any supply. He has no business knowing what's going on in my life, other than, how it affects the children. But anyways, be careful. Flying monkeys are out there. They've the pattern is not full. They're out there. They've gotten clearance for takeoff. So be careful. Watch what you do, because someone is always watching. Well, that's all for now. Be vigilant, be safe, take care.